Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves. This is episode 9 of our second season. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
And I'm Paul LePage.
And this week we have a regular returning guest, Mr. Justin Buznado of Tennessee Wolves. How's it going, Justin?
Doing all right, guys. How you doing this evening?
Good. All right, let's get right to it then. Wolves 2, Newcastle 1.
Nice turn from Raul Jimenez. Skips away from a challenge. Onto Hwang. Hwang into the penalty area on his left foot. He's done it again! Hee-Chan Hwang! What a finish! What a game he is having! The South Korean strikes in front of the South Bank and restores Wolves' lead.
He likes the kimchi. He likes the K-pop. The lad's fucking magic. Hee-Chan Hwang. 2 goals, 2 beautiful goals, 2 beautiful assists from Raul. What a game. No more 1-1 draw with Newcastle. That was fun to watch, wasn't it?
I think we got the signs of a beautiful friendship forming, which is what it's all about. And my long-lost flutterings for Diogo Jota are getting reduced as the weeks go past, as far as these goals keep flying in. And just what 2 great finishes as well. That you kind of had an inkling that it was going through and really had that cold killer instinct about both of them. 2 great goals, and to have the that partnership to show the signs of life that it's beginning to is really exciting. And I'm not sure if you picked up on, I think there was a South Korean journalist who did some tweets of an interview that he did with him after the game, and he said along the lines of the coach wanting me to play a little closer to Raul. So I think that's really good, and that's where there's some opportunity. And again, especially in those somewhat tight games, you need that little bit of class. We probably didn't have it last year, and that's the difference. That turns 1 point into 3.
Justin, what were your feelings?
Yeah, obviously excited, minus the probably 3 years I lost in my life in those last couple minutes. That was fun, but I think we're used to that by now. But man, to your point, yeah, I think both those goals were class. Both of those, Raul worked so hard in both those situations to be able to set up that service to him, and both it was weird. It was like mirror images, the setup and then the finish on both of them, and it was really cool to see. And I think it's right. I think Hwang has 4 shots, 3 goals, so I think a 750 percentage is good. I'm guessing, something like that. But what I like out of it too is if those 2 continue to form that, they're going to have to play over. Other teams are going to have to watch that, and that's going to leave Raul up for some opportunities too. And I think the more that becomes successful, it's going to set up more opportunities for the rest of the club to score, which is what we need. But overall, it's getting that monkey off your back of the first win at Molyneux for Bruno, just a couple goals, like just a couple things that broke the 1-1 streak. Like there's a lot of things out of that just felt really good at the end of the day. Again, especially once got to catch your breath again at the end.
I think what was most impressive is, number 1, the angle of that first goal was something else. Just really technical shot. Number 2, he used both feet on both those goals. He hit it from the right, hit it from the left. Wow, that's exciting to see, because now this is a guy that can be floating around, and you don't want to just focus on him on one side. Like, he can literally move around and shoot from anywhere. And he's got a lot of speed too. Can you believe we're getting this guy, assuming he stays healthy, assuming he keeps doing this, for 13 or 12 million pounds at the end of the year? What a steal.
It's one that you certainly hope that's all wrapped up, bar dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And it's funny that you might have some naysayers, he hasn't done it for RB Leipzig, but that happens, doesn't it? Sometimes that you just don't get a fit with a club or a team or a league, and suddenly he's dropped into the Premier League, arguably the best league in Europe, and it's like we've lit the touch paper, and he's unstoppable at the moment. So hopefully it's just one's brought 2, and they keep on coming, and at the end of the season you could easily get him kind of 10, 12, 15 goals maybe if he carries on this vein of form.
It's funny you say that because I think obviously through our drought, we've seen a couple other former Wolves. Josh, your favorite, Jose. I think he scored 2 goals in his first 2 appearances. And
Billy
then I think,
Joe.
yeah, I can't remember if Spires or one of the guys said there's a point that like Morgan Gibbs White was the top scorer for the Wolves. And I was like, ouch, guys. So it's a situational, I'd say. And maybe this is a thing. Maybe it's a good fit. So it seems to be that way. He plays tough, too, on top of being fast. Like, he's a beast out there. He's got a little bit to him. And I was listening to some of the radio broadcast of it as well, and they were comparing him to your point, Josh Likajada, and just saying maybe he's filling that hole finally. Maybe we got that guy to take into that spot, and it's going to open other stuff up. So, yeah, maybe that's right on.
That defensive element really came in a treat on Saturday because he seemed to be the extra man dropping back to help out St. Maximin when he came across to the left-hand side. So it did well shoring up that side of the pitch to help out Seiss and Marcel when there was some threat down there. So if he's got that string to his bow as well, you're looking at some player, you really are.
And hopefully he proves to be better than Jota in the fact that he's not as streaky, because as good as Jota was, boy, he would go through a 10, 12 game stretch where he did not look good. And hopefully Hwang can avoid those. I also think what's really big here, guys, is the fact that, and you said it right there, he's got the Korean journalist. This is really big for the club to expand its exposure in Korea, which can lead to more funds to spend on the club. You see it a lot in baseball out here. All the Japanese or the Korean baseball players that play, they get a huge following. Even Houston Rockets with Yao Ming, the Rockets became the biggest team in China. So if Hwang keeps playing this way, he's going to challenge Son then for the most popular Korean player. And ultimately, that's going to sell jerseys and get that extra TV revenue as well.
Yeah, I know in our group thread, there's frequent comments of Fosun and what they're going to do with the club after this year and that type of stuff. And I was thinking about, I'm like, it's funny as it is, and I think we all, I don't know if we joke about it, but they just started the record label thing. And I'm like, I don't think somebody's investing into a thing that starts a record label and is going to move on. And it's just all of that kind of stuff. It's funny, but I think to your point, it's hopefully commitment despite what happened there at the break and, that we didn't do anything. But that anywhere we can pull funds, especially from everything that we heard that was the sell to buy, we'll take it. Yeah, keep going.
Could we get a K-pop group to sign for the Wolves record label? How awesome would that be? One of the interesting things I read, because Lodge is definitely making it clear that he's looking at this on a game-to-game tactical when he's making his lineup decisions. He said one reason he elected to go with Trincao instead of Adama this time, actually, I think this was in Hwang's interview with the Korean paper, said that they thought that would help more with the link-up play with Raul and Hwang. Do you think that's what you saw happening there? Was Trincao helping that, Paul?
I'm not sure. It didn't seem like he got out the gate super quick on that game on Saturday. Like it was one that he was really going to roll his sleeves up and dictate, like some of the previous ones indicated that he could. It wasn't as bad as his performance against Brentford, and whilst he was quiet, up he popped with that chance. And when that came across, I just thought that was harder to miss than score. So it just seemed after that point, I know the camera, we get a certain vantage of it watching afar, but the camera kept on pointing at him. And it was like he took it personally and he didn't recover from that blown chance. And I was generally surprised that he lasted all the way through the game pretty much. That I thought he was an obvious replacement 60-minute mark onwards. Even if it wasn't for Traore, I thought he was still an option to come off and bring someone on, either Traore or opponents who could offer something different. But it's the missing piece at the moment to get that third player. And it could well be that it could be on a game-by-game basis dictated by the opponents, that it's somewhat of a rotation. And it's still something I'd like to see. I'd like to see more of a genuine 10 in there if he's got that skill set that he can drop deeper and fill that hole. But I think that may have to be a particular opponent, maybe at home. Not sure you can run that away, but he's got some options. It's just you'd have hoped that Trincao had took that chance and that would have propelled him onto the next level. And if that would have gone in and we'd have gone 2-0 ahead really early in the game, for talking about the Wolves, I thought we could have gone on and took the confidence, and Newcastle's heads would have dropped, and we could have gone on even further from that point. So yeah, it's still, I think everything's being weighed up in terms of a settled lineup and whether there actually is going to be one.
I'm with you. I was surprised he came out at the half, honestly, the way he played, especially since they equalized right before. I thought there might be a change then, and then for him to pretty much finish out. It'd be curious. We've got the international break now, so it'll be a couple of weeks, but it would have been curious how much that was stuck to, and if he bit out of his lineups, it's going to vary and matchups, that type of thing. But now that we have a couple of weeks, it's going to probably settle and go away, and we'll see what kind of lineup he rolls back with here in a few weeks against Villa. But if it had been a quick turnaround, couple days, week game or something like that, if he'd have started again or something, just because I think there was so much negative. Like I said on the radio broadcast, they were pretty hard on Trincao, like on that game, and that he did not have his best day out there, which I think we probably all agree on. But to your point, Paul, I think maybe that from that point of the potential goal, that it went downhill from there.
And so that brings up the big thing, obviously, Justin, you're a Adama stan like I am. So it came out late last week that new contract looks like it's going to happen, 100,000 a week, and then he starts on the bench and then doesn't get play until late. Now, I read this a few places. I didn't see it myself. Some people online were saying that Adama looked upset when he was walking off the field. What do you think's going on there, Paul? Was that just tactical, or do you think Lodge thinks that Adama can work with Hwang and Raul up top?
It's a tricky one. He's come out and said that effectively no player's undroppable. So maybe that factors into it somewhat. Maybe there is a contract element to it as well. Seems as though when we did start the season and we had more, probably you could say, high profile games and high profile opponents, he was on the ball and getting touches and putting all the stats for dribbles and completion, blowing those out the water. So who knows, now that the transfer window is closed, is this contract issue more of a big deal than we're led to believe? I don't think you can necessarily get too disheartened about, be it looking frustrated or pissed off on the sidelines if you've only come on fleetingly or not at all. But it's an interesting dynamic for sure that, again, it's somewhat up in the air, that we haven't really got that settled 3 yet, or if it continues to be a 3 or maybe switches to a 2 somehow, how all the pieces fit together and how you keep everyone happy.
Yeah, actually, that was my only interesting thought, is where does Adama play into this after, like, Raul and Hwang had a good pairing this match? And do you let that keep going? Do you try and mix it in and see? Does it give more options? I don't know. That was the thing in the back of my head after, again, probably because, to your point, I'm an Adama stan like you are. So I'm concerned about him and what's happening with him. But that was kind of my thought, is Brew's going to go with what's working. So at the end of the day, they got to put the ball in the back of the net and win. Yeah, feelings are going to be feelings. But if you're throwing an even, bigger wrench in there, if you're talking contract on top of, if you're finding another mix, it's not him working well every week. So,
yeah, I still want to see it tried. But yeah, Justin, I was just like you. Obviously, I'm a huge Adama fan, but you watch what Raul and Hwang are doing, and I hope Adama can work with that. But at the same time, I can also see if Lodge is thinking that link-up play would suffer a little bit if Adama's on the field, because Adama really does slow play it in sometimes and bring people in before turning on the Jets. So we'll see. That could be something we see in the next match against Villa. So let's look at the defense then, specifically Jose Sa. Little unfortunate on that goal. The announcers certainly seemed to think it was not a foul on the Newcastle player. I think everybody else in the world did. But you can't really blame Sa for getting up. He didn't know if a foul was going to be called. And honestly, he almost got up in time to make a pretty good save. Paul, what was your whole feelings on that situation?
Yeah, in real time, I didn't think it was a foul. It was a genuine 50-50. But you play the dark arts there and you just stay down regardless. And it did pan, I think, to the ref, and you saw him take a closer look, and the whistle went to his mouth, and then they carried on because that's when Sarr started to move. So even if it was a foul, even if it had played all the way out and gone in with Sarr on the floor, I'm sure the ref would have blown up and put an end to that. And it's just being cute in times like that. And we've certainly been on the opposite end of it enough times that why shouldn't we be doing it? But as an aside and just in general, I thought the rest of the performance was really commanding, and potentially the save early in the second half
Absolutely
changed the game. If that had gone in, I think we'd have been in trouble. That was awesome, and everything else he did well.
Yeah, I thought it was a good day, that save, and I was actually watching it again earlier tonight. Just that save again, and more times you watch it, was pretty remarkable. I couldn't agree more. I think the consensus was if he stayed down, a better chance to get that whistle blown. I think my thought was after it happened was that he's a competitor and he wasn't sure, and so he gets up and tries to do a thing like any competitor would. And like you said, he almost got the thing, but I don't know. It's a tough call to stay down and let it play out, and you just don't know. So you're gonna do your thing in it. But other than that, I think he had a solid match. He kept us in it, especially at the beginning of the second half.
Justin, how would you feel that Saw is comparing to Patricio at this point? Do you feel like it's an equal upgrade, little downgrade? How do you feel?
I really liked Trincao. I was a big fan of his. I really was. I think there were many games, especially in Nuno ball, where he really had to be there for a good chunk of the match, 60-70%. I would say we're equal to, maybe slightly less than, but that's only because of scope of work, let's call it. Like so many more matches with Rui than Saw so far. So that's the only reason I'd say that. But I'm trying to think of if he had a mental lapse, something like that. I can't think of anything right now, but again, it's a short window to compare against.
Paul?
I'm probably 50-50 at the moment, similarly, that they've both got slightly different skill sets that I don't think Sarr might match to Ruiz, but neither can Rui match to Sarr. So it will be over the course of the season if those of Sarr's come to the fore. And so far, I think they could. I think his distribution looks better, more comfortable with his feet. There's going to be a few hairy moments like what happens when he gets challenged or gets pressed. So that may put our hearts in the mouth a few times. But I like the command of his box, and I think that's reassuring for a back line, that you've got a keeper that's going to come out and not necessarily punch, but come and claim crosses. Patricio wasn't all that au fait when it came to that. I'm confident that we're going to, at the end of the day, we're going to have an upgrade, and he's going to suit the team a little better than Patricio did.
So the back line played well, though, against Newcastle. Connor Cody especially really improved after a rough few outings. I thought his last two have been pretty good. And Kilman, again, was a rock. What were your feelings, Justin, on the defense?
I think Kilman was strong. I think he's probably been our most consistent player, honestly, if you want to look at across the entire board for the whole season. It seems like every match that they play, the summary positives, his name's up there at the beginning. And so I think he just continues to perform well. I think it's good. I think my focus is on him. I agree. I think Cody did a bit, but he got bagged on pretty hard. Maybe not wrongfully, but he got banged on pretty hard after the last few weeks. So I think he had a bit better match, but I think Kilman's just back there holding it strong. So that was the focus for me.
Paul, how'd you feel about Cody's performance?
Yeah, I think Cody was solid and not spectacular, but pretty much where we've been used to seeing him in terms of performance. I thought Saiz had a good game. I thought apart from obviously the chance when they scored, when he put the through ball through and his chance, they did a pretty good number on St. Maximum as well as a unit, which bodes well. My only reservation, and it's another week of not having a really forceful number 9 or striking duo that they're up against. Southampton were pretty blunt. Newcastle were missing Callum Wilson, who's the type of player that can cause us some trouble and potentially put a chance away. So whilst there's positives, it's not as if they're up against Lukaku or that type of player. So I'll take what you can from that defensive display. Maybe do give him the credit that if Large did say after Brentford that they needed to cut out the mistakes. Maybe they've knuckled down and really worked on that, and that's beginning to show. So that could be a positive. My only grumble as a defensive unit, and it's not really defensively, it's so limiting us going forwards. And when it's Marcel as our left wing back, as well as you play defensively, you've got to do more as a left wing back, especially at home. And I'd say the same goes for Semedo. I thought Semedo had a good game defensively, but when he gets past the halfway line, it just stops or comes inside. He doesn't bomb on. He's not an option over the top to be picked out for a through ball or anything like that. So maybe that's somewhat of a shift in style that's been implemented over these past couple of weeks. That to begin with, it was all guns blazing and we were very attacking and we had all these shots and no one knew what Wolves turned out because we hadn't seen it for so long. But these past 2 weeks we've become more reserved, and lo and behold, we've picked up a couple of wins. So who knows what the heck's going on? But I'd just like to see some more attacking intent, some more creativity from those two if this five's going to persist.
And that was going to be my next question to you. If Aitnery is fit, he has to start, right? At this point, Marcel can't hit a cross if he's in a church on Easter. Like, it's rough to watch him on the offensive side.
It is. It's like it gets to and it breaks down every time. It's not as if there's one good move, or maybe you get one ball that goes in and he does decent, like the Watford one that led to the own goal. That's been it pretty much. There should be, again, it's not just singling him out. If you are in a five at the back, those two wing backs need to do more offensively, and it's not happening, and it's stifling us somewhat.
You made a good point. I'm actually kind of curious. I was going to ask you guys to that point as far as the last several matches. It does seem like we've stepped back from, to your point, the way you said guns blazing is perfect. And I'm curious if that's Bruno, like, learning the players, changing the scheme, the fact that it's great to have all these shots in the world but not score. I was actually curious about that too, because these 4 matches were, I think we were supposed to run the table. We were thinking a little bit. It was a little more bottom of the table clubs or New Brentford, which outside of that, if you'd have told me a couple of weeks ago we're going to get 9 out of 12 points out of especially after the first 3, I'd have been, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm curious where we drop points. I probably wouldn't have guessed Brentford, but hey. But to that point, we in the middle of that run changed tactic a little bit, I feel like. So I don't know. I was kind of curious what your guys' thoughts on that too, because that's what I was feeling as well.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's because of the level of competition, they didn't want to be too offensive and get caught in a counter, because those teams obviously a little, as Paul said, not as strong of an offensive attack, so they're going to try and hit you with a counter. So I wonder if that's the case, and then when we go up against one of these bigger squads coming up, if we're going to be gung-ho again. I don't know, Paul.
It's somewhat about the opposition on the flip side as well, that with the likes of Tottenham and Man United allowing us to play a little more and make us look good because it gave us the freedom to do so, whereas the likes of Southampton, Newcastle probably reserved trying to pick up points for their own battle. So does that stifle us somewhat? So pan it out as far as that goes. As long as you're beating what's put in front of you, however it comes, then you take it. It's going to be interesting when we do see different opponents come across, and we're a little way away from it with this international break. But I'd definitely say that even though they're not running away with the league like they thought they were going to do, Villa next is going to be more of a test, certainly at Villa Park, than Newcastle and Southampton were. So I think it's going to be a good marker for us to see where we are come the end of that game.
So we got 2 games left for this month because of the international break, at Villa and at Leeds. And then I'll go ahead and count the 1st of November, which is going to be Everton. Ideal or realistically, how many points, Paul, do you see us getting out of those 3 games?
That each in their own a tricky game. So on paper, you wouldn't rule out 3 points from those being a decent return, with 2 of them being away. But yeah, that doesn't really propel you up the table so much. I'd probably take at this stage of the season 4 would be fantastic.
That's where I am too. I would say 4. If I had to look at it, if we win out of those 3, draw a level with one, and up another one, yeah, I mean, we come out of 4 of that, I'm probably all right.
Man, we're all on the same page. I was thinking 4 or 5. 4 or 5. And if you could get 3 points from one of those, Paul, which one would it be?
Yeah, it'd be the first one.
So have you gotten a chance to watch them very much? Like, how different of a team are they without the golden boy who's shipped up to Man City?
I watched that game on, when did they play? Sunday. They played the earlier game against Tottenham, and then I made a point to watch the Man City game at Liverpool later on. And I think I've watched bits and pieces of Villa, and we'll probably come on to it next show, but they have certainly made a tweak to try and accommodate both Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins, and that's something I'm a little concerned about as far as the Wolves go, that you've got 2 forwards who can pull you in a couple of different directions and get in behind. So I think they've accommodated him pretty well. And as far as missing Grealish, I don't think they have so far yet. When you've put him into the Manchester City side, I just don't see him as a Man City player. He's got a little bit of Traore about him when you put him in a Man City team, where everything went through him at Villa. Now City play with such a different style. It's more fast paced. Man City players seem to have a job and know what that job is and go and execute. And I think Grealish gets a ball and he's like, and it's a complete disconnect. So at the moment, I think Villa are getting the better value from that 100 million. I really do.
Yeah, it's not FIFA. People need to remember that. And the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I think Adama needs to kind of realize that too. If he goes to one of these bigger clubs, he's not going to be starting every game. He's going to be coming off the bench at pretty much all of those games. And so if he's not comfortable with that role, probably shouldn't leave.
And I think that was reported quite a bit when obviously the last 18 months or whatever with him, all the word about him going somewhere else to add to a club, not to be a focus of a club. I think he's grown into a focus here. It's still iffy depending on what you look at week by week. But yeah, I'm curious about that too.
Mm-hmm. So the news came out that Mosquera did tear his hamstring. So he had surgery, out 3 to 5 months. I'd say probably closer to 4 or 5 months there. We've got a real situation coming up in December, Paul, when Bali and Saiss head off to the Africa Cup. What are we going to do? Who's going to fill that spot with Kilman and Cody?
It's a tricky one as far as available bodies go. I think the only benefit of having that versatility of a player like Marcel is that he can drop in and probably be viable as a left-sided centre-back in a 3. He wouldn't be anywhere near in a 4, I don't think. So it's going to be challenging, that's for sure. And is it a reflection of what happened in the summer? Who knows? Are they going to have to address it going forwards? Probably. It's not as like you're turning around on the bench and it's deep. But then again, you got Hoover there, I suppose, that's talked of, and maybe he's got potential sided centre back as well. Then Donker's there, but then that leaves a midfield light. So you're just moving parts around, and it's like when you got that annoying bar table and one bit's wobbly and you stick that beer mat underneath one leg and that stables it, but then the other piece starts to wobble on the other side. So it's tricky, it really is, and it's going to stretch us and test us, that's for sure.
Do you think these players are used to that to a point? Because we ran pretty light with Nuno, right? We weren't real deep, and I don't know. Part of me wonders if they're used to being stretched to a point. I think you're spot on with you're moving around the problem. You're just doing one thing to cover another. But it's also not like most of these players who've been in the club the last few years have had a really deep bench to supplement when something happened. They've had to pick up, they've had to shift, and maybe get some different roles. And to be honest, we've seen that burn us over the last few years. From time to time, we get a matchup that's not favorable because they're not used to be in that position. But I don't know. I wonder if that's a mentality this club has that I think all athletes have the I'll pick up the slack type of thing anyway, but this team especially because they've been that way for the last few years when Nuno was in charge.
It's an interesting dynamic because I think being thrown into the Europa League somewhat helped with that, because suddenly Max Kilman started playing, and then it was, well, if you could do it in Europe, let's see how good he is in the Premier League. So when he came in, he didn't really let anyone down. So it's a case of if your first 11 strong, your bench is fairly strong. Who's next, or who's the kids coming through that can be the next Max Kilman? It seems to me like those that are talked about or mooted have all gone on loan to build up that experience. So it's catch-22, isn't it? Do they go away and get a season playing week in, week out, or they're hovering in and around the bench? Because the only thing that will change is if a tournament takes out some players, or if there's a bad injury over a few months, season ending one, that you're going to get a genuine opportunity. And I think for we're not a Man City, we're not a Liverpool, we haven't got that depth of squad. And I think when it's a club like Wolves in the position we're in, you've got to have a group of players that could all feasibly play in the 11 every week. And if you're not playing, you're on the bench one week and you're favouring a start the following one. So it is tricky.
I wonder if that's when he may try and go with the 4-man back line, almost by necessity. So
it could be. And then hopefully you're at a point in the season where you're not really looking over your shoulder to do that.
yeah.
And if you can run with it for 4 or 5 games midway through the season, because you're mid-table there or thereabouts, maybe pick up a win to help. It would be a case negatively that if you did do that and you started to tank, can you turn the ship around? So I'd be confident that he could, given the squad that we've got. So yeah, we'll see. That necessity one could be a big part of the puzzle.
How long is that? I'm not sure with the Africa. How long does that run for? Is it like?
I think I read that. Yeah, I think I read that if Morocco or Ivory Coast made it to the championship, it'd be like through January 22nd or something.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. But I'm sure there's a break after too that they'd have to have.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm just curious with holiday fixtures. That's always a fun time when we seem to get. I can't remember who we're playing right around there, but
I think we're playing United and Arsenal, if I remember correctly.
We always seem to get really favorable matches within a couple days of each other. So yeah.
Oh, Boxing Day. Let's give them Man City or Man United. Chill.
Yeah.
Schedule makers did us no favors this year, but we're on a winning track. We're up to 12th in the table. Paul, we got good vibes for finishing top half now. If we can keep this up.
It's what happens, isn't it? After a couple of wins, you automatically, your eyes go upwards, but then you do look across the games played and it's still only 7. So it makes such a difference, that the positivity, where if it would have been the opposite and we were flirting around the bottom 3, you wouldn't be looking at, oh, we've only played 7 games. You'd be thinking, oh, we're in trouble here. It's funny, at one point over the previous weekend, we dropped into the bottom 3 midway through the Saturday, and then results going elsewhere. We came out of it and then jumped ahead on Sunday comfortably, and then on Saturday again, even going further, and it was top 10, and you're alongside Arsenal then. And just think what Leicester fans might be thinking. Oh yeah, we're going to be challenging for the top 4 this year, and we're kicking around with those types of teams. So I think if we maintain what we're doing, that 10th spot, 10, 12, maybe bottom of the top in the likes of the Southamptons, the Brightons, if their run comes to an end, I could see us being in that range.
Justin, you didn't get a chance to answer that question when we answered it or asked it in the last podcast. Where do you think we're going to finish?
Oh God. so early, man. If we're, don't shoot me. If we're in the 10 to 14 range,
Yeah.
that's probably pretty realistic. I don't want to have the last 10 weeks or so kind of like some of us felt last year. If we drop here, and the sky's falling stuff, I'd like to avoid that, but I think a 10 to 14 is fair. But again, we're 7 in, and the thing I've watched, and own it that I'm much more of a novice than you guys, but like I've watched these clubs come up, like, Leeds excelled really well last year, their first year up. Brentford is 7 at the table right now, and I think they matched us for most points after 7 matches or whatever, and good on them for it. But everybody falls, everybody rises, and so I got to pace myself. I'm going to get too worked up over it and do that. So, but to answer your question in a really long way, I think 10 to 14 in that range. We're out of the really worried, but we're probably, if we get cracking that top 10, we're gonna have some things really go our way, or something's gonna happen at the transfer window, and we're gonna get somebody that's gonna catch fire or something like that.
The sky is falling with Wolves fans? No.
Never.
No.
And as far as transfer window goes, a certain mooted Portuguese midfielder made his appearance after an injury on the weekend. So who knows as far as that goes?
Oh, that was so clearly the physical wasn't as bad as we were led to believe. Okay. I still hope we didn't miss our shot at him. I really do.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
I try to discover a little something to make me sweeter. Oh, baby, refrain from breaking my heart. I'm so in love with you. I'll be forever blue. That you give me no reason why you make me work so hard. That you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no, that you give me no soul. I hear you calling, oh baby, please give a little respect to you.
Paul, I got a no stupid question through my Twitter DM this week, and it was an interesting one. He said, this was from Josh Myers on Twitter, and he said, do you know the Wolves' full-time song after today's game versus Newcastle? And I had to check with you so you could inform me what it was.
I was listening intently, and thanks to my expert knowledge of British pop music from the 1980s, it was the wonderful Erasure, and give a little respect. They seem to pop out with a few good end of game songs, which I quite like. I think the only downer the weekend posed from the fan base was the immediate music after the goal went in, which is frowned upon. So I think many of the hardcore Wolves fans wanted the goal music to go away, which I'm inclined to agree with.
It sounds like Sweet Caroline is not a hit either at Molineux.
Yeah, not that one either. And
There's
again,
lots of
that
negative.
we never see that. We never get that full experience. But I'd love to be there for a night game, and the DJ and the dance tracks to turn up loud and the fire's going. That's got something to it. But yeah, for me, Sweet Caroline's got nothing on that. Yeah.
Yeah, hard pass. That's a good question, though. I was wondering that, because I feel like I've heard different stuff, so I didn't know what they closed out with.
Yeah, I thought it was a great question because I didn't know as well. But Paul to the rescue. I knew he would. All right, so we're about to enter added time and the international break. So, Justin, if there's a listener hearing from you for the first time and wants to know about Tennessee Wolves, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks, guys. You can email 10wolves, TEN, like Tennessee, wolves @gmail.com. Reach out, and I'll get back to you real quick. And we always like to ask how you became a Wolves fan, and we'll do some chatting from there and get you in the mix with the group. So please hit me up.
Have you guys been able to meet up lately?
We have not had a chance to yet. No, I think despite what the area does and where you go and what it's like. Still probably being a little precautious with our stuff and some locations that we've tried to meet up to. So yeah, not yet, but hopefully soon. I was thinking hopefully maybe after like holidays we can try and do something and maybe finish the back half of the season getting together a few times. So fingers crossed.
Good deal.
That brings episode 9 to an end. So please continue to do what you do in terms of liking, subscribing, and reviewing Whole Lot of Wolves on the podcast platform you find yourself listening to us on. We will be back after the international break with a dedicated preview of that first local derby of the season. It isn't West Brom, but it's certainly tasty enough versus the Villa. So until then, up the Wolves.